Good morning, class, or afternoon, or evening, whatever time you're watching this. In class, we have been talking about plant needs and how to identify plant nutritional deficiencies. Today, we are going to talk about how commercial farmers and greenhouses fix those deficiencies. Fertilizers. So, when we're talking about greenhouse and crop production, most fertilizers can be summed up into two different categories: water-soluble and granular fertilizer. Now, I know this isn't what you would normally see for water-soluble and granular fertilizer. Right now it's fall, and it's actually almost Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to those watching at this time. But we don't really have anything that's needing fertilizing right now on my farm at home. So, thought these would be good substitutions to see what we're needing. So, water-soluble fertilizer is exactly what it sounds like. This type of fertilizer dissolves completely into water. Once it's mixed, the nutrients are immediately available for the plant to absorb through the roots. Think of it as giving like a plant a quick drinkable vitamin, or like drinking Powerade when you're on the game. So now we have granular fertilizer. I have glitter, but it kind of shows the point. Granular fertilizer is made into granules. It's little bitty little balls that you could touch and feel. Although, always wear protection and wash your hands after using fertilizer. So, these are little dry pellets that sit on top of the soil or end up worked into it. They break down slowly over time, feeding the plant gradually as they dissolve. Now, let's look at how we actually mix and apply these fertilizers. So, before you ever mix any fertilizer, the label is the law. It tells you exactly how much to use and what you need to do to be careful using it. And always remember to wear your PPE and use personal protective practices. So, for our Miracle-Gro here, this is a fertilizer that you probably have seen in the store. Something that you'd see at Walmart. I believe I actually got this at Walmart. Or you'd see at Tractor Supply or any hardware store. It's something easily available to everybody. And I actually use it on my own plants at home. So, back to instructions. For indoor use, since we're indoors, mix 1/2 teaspoon, which is the small end of the enclosed scoop, per gallon of water every 2 weeks. Now, I don't have a gallon, but I do have 8 ounces of water here. That is 1/8 of a gallon, so I will use 1/8 of my spoon in here. Let's see. The cool thing about Miracle-Gro, I like Miracle-Gro, and my nephew loves it too when we're using it because it's a fun color. It's blue. So let's see here. Need about 1/8 of this spoon, which is not a lot at all. There we go. Now I'm going to drop it in. I'm going to agitate it and mix it up. So let's try this out. And as you can see, even though it's taking some agitation right now, the fertilizer is mixing and dissolving into our water. Let's see if I can get those last few granules at the bottom done. There we go. So, as you can see, other than the couple of granules we got stuck at the bottom, it's mixed it is dissolved pretty well into the water. That's a pretty good thing. It's easy for our plants to absorb it. Now, let's look at our granule fertilizer. Granule fertilizer is different because it takes slower application. So you actually have to spread it. This is what most people think about when you're talking with fertilizer, not so much the liquid one. So, because I don't have a granular fertilizer at home that I can show you, I'm going to do something that you'll be able to see very easily here in the classroom. Glitter. Most granular fertilizers use a type of application called broadcasting. Broadcasting, just like you would with TV, means spreading out your information or your fertilizer as far as you can and as evenly as you can. Like live television, it goes everywhere. So let's go ahead and spread or broadcast our fertilizer onto our property. Let's see. think that's pretty even coverage. How about you? It looks pretty even. Well, except it starts sliding there. But broadcasting means we spread them evenly across the surface. We want a nice, consistent layer so that every part of the soil gets the same amount. Now that we have looked at our water-soluble and our granular fertilizers, let's look at some of the pros and cons of using both. Water-soluble fertilizer is fast-acting. Because it's already absorbed in the water, plants can absorb it quicker through the roots. And it's great for correcting deficiencies because the results show up sooner. It's easy to control. We have our measurements and we can measure it out first before sending it into the water and the soil. And because of that, it's ideal for greenhouse production and container plants. You don't have to go and give a little bit of this granular fertilizer to every single plant. However, because it's so fast acting, it needs frequent reapplication since it washes through the soil and the plants can absorb it quicker. And because it's so easy to spread and use, you have actually a higher chance of over-fertilizing if it's mixed too strong. Right now, I could have put too much of that fertilizer in here because I didn't have a specific spoon for this cup, and I couldn't control that. It requires that careful mixing and measuring every time you mix it, and it actually can be more expensive long term because you're having to use it more often. If you remember correctly, on our instructions, it says to apply this every 2 weeks to your plants. Well, this box cost me about $10. So if I'm applying it every 2 weeks throughout our growing season, and here in South Georgia, our growing season is long, I'm probably going to be buying 3 or 4 boxes of this a year. That's $40 plus tax every time I'm having to use it every year. That's kind of expensive. Now, let's look at our granular fertilizer. Just like having a fast-acting fertilizer for water-soluble works great, sometimes you want it to be slower. Sometimes you want a slower application and absorption. So, granular fertilizer, because it's not broken down already before you apply it, actually gives a slower, more steady nutrient release over weeks or months. Because of that, you have less frequent application, and it's really good for large areas. I don't want to be watering every single plant with a water-soluble fertilizer over my 600-acre farm. It's going to take a long time, and it's just not going to be fun. And, well, granular fertilizer is easy to spread. It's easy to broadcast with a spreader, and it's less work on the farmer who has more things to do. And because of that, because you're having to buy less over time, it's usually more cost-effective for large operations. However, the cons of a granular fertilizer is it's slower. It's going to give you slower results. Plants might not show that improvement right away like they would with the water-soluble. And you have to be careful to make sure it's evenly spread. If it's not, you're going to have hot spots of some plants that have really benefited from it and others who haven't. Some forms of granular fertilizers don't dissolve completely, especially if you don't have the right conditions. So if you haven't gotten a lot of rain, well, your fertilizer is just sitting there burning up in the soil. And speaking of burning, having fertilizer, if it gets spread in the wrong areas, like if it ends up on leaves or any foliage, that could cause burning to the plant. Even though you may think, wait, Miss Williams, it's fertilizer. It's supposed to be good. It's supposed to go into the plant. But just like you don't want peanut butter all over your arm, if you don't have it going into your body, it's not doing any good. It's just making you sticky. So these are our two main fertilizer types that we're going to talk about in this class: granular and water-soluble, along with how to apply them safely. Farmers and greenhouse growers often use both depending on the crop and the situation. In our next class, when we all come back to school, you'll get to practice applying each type so you can see the difference for yourselves. And with that, have a great day, y'all.